So hey everyone, here's how to do a eye zoom in transition in Premiere Pro. So to get started, have your clips ready, and the first thing you want to do is add a scale. So I'm going to add transform onto my first clip. I'm going to hit the stopwatch on position and scale, head to the end just one keyframe back, and I am going to scale into his right eye. So I'm going to set it to something like 700. I'll just do that and reposition it so that the eye is centered like so, and then I'm going to graph it. So open up your graphs, pull the handle of the first keyframe towards the right, so this one all the way to the right, and if you want to you can also adjust it. Actually, in fact, we'll do that afterwards, so let me just do this one as well with the scale. So pull this all the way to the right, make sure the velocity is at 0 or above. That looks fine, perfect. Then I'm going to pull the handle for the second keyframe just down there, and the same applies to the second one, so make sure they are identical. So now I've got my scale in, I'm going to add motion blur, so just scroll down to the transform effect and untick this box, then set it to something like 30. The higher the number, the more motion blur there will be. So if I set it really high, you can see it's very blurry. I'm actually going to go for 60. I think that looks perfect. So what I'm going to do is move on to my next clip, add on transform once again. I'm going to make another scale in, so I've just hit the stopwatches, head to the end, one keyframe back, and I'm going to set it to 120, I think. Slightly reposition it like so, and that looks fine. If you notice your scale ins don't look right, what you can do is highlight all of your position keyframes, right click and head over to spatial interpolation and linear. The same would apply to your second clip, so highlight them, right click and linear. Anyways, for this graph, I'm going to pull my handle to the left like so. Same goes for the scale, just pull it all the way to the left. I'm going to head to the beginning, and in fact what I'm going to be doing is just moving these keyframes one frame ahead, so just like so. For some reason graphing doesn't work properly in the new Premiere Pro versions, so this just makes it easier. So yeah, what I'm going to do is just fix these up. So I'm going to tighten up this keyframe and just place it behind the playhead, and the same goes for the scale, just like that. Perfect. I recommend leaving your keyframes as they are instead of moving them back. This is so we can see the scale in on the second clip during the eye transition. But anyways, in between your clips, head about 4 frames backwards, so 1 2 3 4. If you are using a higher frame rate than 24 FPS, you may have to go 1 frame back extra, but 4 frames it is for me, and just make a cut. Then for the clip that we just cut, I recommend changing your shutter angle to something higher, so I'm going to double mine, so 60, double that, 120. Next we're going to make a mask around the eye, so head over to Opacity and click this pen tool. There are 2 ways you can do this. So if I just zoom in like so, you can make a mask manually like me, so you can just keep on clicking around the eye, or what you can do is just click, and then for your second point, let's say up here, click and then hold to create a curve like so. I prefer manually adding points, but we're going to be using this method for this tutorial to make it easier for you. So once you made your second point, just make a third, click, and then just drag it to make a curve like so. This can make masking a little more tricky, but you get a smoother result. So just keep on playing around with the points until you get your desired result. And remember to click and drag, so don't just click, that won't do any good. So click and then drag it, and that's done. Make sure you click on the inverted box, and the next thing we're going to do is now track this frame. So make sure you're at the beginning of the cut and keyframe the mask path like so. Head 1 frame ahead, and for some reason the points aren't showing, so just click away. You can just click away like so and click back on the mask path. There you go. Now the points are visible. I'm just going to zoom in once again and just realign the points so that we can track the mask on the eye. That looks fine, so now just keep repeating this for the next few frames. So once you have done that, it should look something like this. The next thing we want to do is duplicate this layer, so hold Alt on your keyboard and click and drag it up. Then for the duplicated layer, which is on top, you want to untick the inverted box. What we're going to do here is control the opacity of the mask so that it gradually fades in, or should I say fades out onto the second clip. And speaking of the second clip, we actually need to place this underneath our mask. So if you just highlight your clips and push them up like so, and then move this underneath the mask on the duplicated layer, if you do turn down the mask opacity, you can see it's now visible. What you can do is simply hit the stopwatch at about 1 2 3 keyframes ahead, and then set it to 0, then right click on it and click on ease in, and that will gradually fade it in like so. In fact, instead of 100 at the beginning, set it to something like 90, and as I said, it will gradually fade in like so. Or you can manually keyframe like me, so I'm going to set it to 90 at the beginning, then it's going to go to 75, 30, and then 5. Now so far you're going to get something that looks like this, and it's not very impactful. And when I say it's not impactful, I'm referring to the first clip. The scale in isn't strong enough, so what we need to do is add an extra frame. So simply just drag it like so. So for the bottom layer, just add on an extra frame. You can make a cut as well, and for that singular frame, what you can do is increase the scale. You can use the transform effect or just the main scale built in, it's up to you, but I'm going to scale it in like so that it's barely visible, just about. Another way to improve this is by shifting setting the position and scale for the second clip a few frames ahead. So 1, 2, and just highlight these, move it like so. Create an adjustment layer and place it on top. Increase it to about 5 frames long, like so. Place it just before the single frame that we made, so not on top of it, just 1 frame back, like so. Add on Gaussian blur, and we're going to keyframe this. So set the blurriness to 10, 1 frame ahead, and set it to 20. Head all the way to the end, or 1 keyframe back. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to head 1 keyframe back and set it to 0. Right click and ease in. Optional, but you can also add an exposure transition. So just click anywhere here. It doesn't really matter, just like that. It's going to add lumetri color underneath effect controls. Open up basic correction. Set the exposure to 0 at the start, and then it should go 3. Head about 5 or 10 keyframes ahead, or to the end if you want to, and just set it to 0. Right click, ease in. Turned out looking pretty good. If you want to, you can also shift it to the left just for that extra impact. So just highlight them like that, 2 frames back, and that's all you need to do. Peace.